You know, I've been watching from somewhere beyond this world, and I see millions of you chasing something called vibration. You're jumping around your living room trying to feel high frequency. You're forcing yourself to smile when your heart is breaking. You're terrified that one negative thought will ruin everything. And I need to tell you something that might shock you, but it will set you free. Your vibration doesn't matter. I know. That's not what they're telling you. The gurus, the manifestation coaches, the ones selling you crystals and frequency music, they've convinced you that you need to maintain some magical emotional state or the universe won't deliver. They've turned the law of your own mind into an exhausting performance where you're constantly monitoring yourself, judging yourself, afraid of your own thoughts. But here's what I discovered in my decades of studying the subconscious mind, what I saw proven in thousands of lives, what the ancient wisdom actually teaches. When you strip away the modern nonsense, the subconscious mind doesn't respond to your vibration. It doesn't respond to your vibration. It doesn't care about your frequency. It doesn't measure your energy on some cosmic scale. The subconscious responds to one thing and one thing only: belief. Not the belief you pretend to have, not the belief you pretend to have. Not the affirmations you repeat while your inner voice screams that they're lies, but the actual conviction, the assumption, the mental acceptance that lives beneath your awareness. And here's the beautiful part, the part that changes everything. You don't need to feel good to believe something. You don't need to feel good to believe something. You don't need to be happy to impress your subconscious. You don't need to vibrate at some special frequency. You just need to accept an idea as true, plant it in the fertile soil of your deeper mind, and let it grow while you go about your life. I spent my entire career watching people torture themselves trying to maintain positive emotions. They'd come to me exhausted, defeated, convinced they were failures because they couldn't stay happy enough to manifest. And I'd tell them what I'm telling you now: stop trying to control your feelings. Stop trying to control your feelings. Stop monitoring your emotional state like it's a test you might fail. Your feelings are not the cause of your reality. They're the result of your beliefs. The law of attraction movement, well-meaning as it is, has created a generation of people who are afraid of their own humanity. Afraid to feel sad. Afraid to acknowledge pain. Afraid to acknowledge pain. Afraid that a moment of doubt will push their dreams away. This isn't freedom. This is a new kind of prison, one where you're both the prisoner and the guard. But true faith isn't a cage. Real faith breathes. It bends without breaking. It bends without breaking. It allows for the full spectrum of human experience: the doubts, the questions, the moments when you simply don't know if what you're doing is working. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Your subconscious mind doesn't punish you for doubt. It responds to your dominant mental attitude, not to every fleeting thought that crosses your consciousness. You see, there's a vast difference between a passing shadow of uncertainty and the deep-seated belief that governs your life. Think of it this way. Imagine you're learning to swim. You might have moments in the water where fear flashes through your mind. What if I sink? What if I can't stay afloat? But beneath those surface ripples, there's a growing confidence, a fundamental trust in your body's ability to learn this skill. That deeper current is what matters. That deeper current is what matters. That's what carries you forward. The same principle applies to your mental and spiritual practice. You might have a bad day. You might have a bad day. You might catch yourself thinking, this isn't working, nothing's changing. That thought in itself doesn't undo weeks or months of constructive mental work. It's just a thought, passing through like a cloud across the sun. What matters is what you return to. What matters is what you return to. What matters is the habitual dwelling place of your mind. Where do you live mentally? Do you live in faith more than fear? Do you live in faith more than fear? Do you return to confidence more often than doubt? That's the key. I've worked with thousands of people over the years, and I can tell you this with absolute certainty. The ones who succeed aren't the ones who succeed, aren't the ones who never doubt. They're the ones who don't make doubt their home. They're the ones who don't make doubt their home. They visit that place occasionally. Sure, we all do, but they don't unpack their bags and settle in there. They feel the fear, acknowledge it, and then consciously redirect their attention back to their vision, back to their faith, back to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That's the practice. Not perfection, but redirection. Not perfection, but redirection. Not constant positivity, but persistent return to what builds rather than what destroys. Here's what I want you to understand deeply. Your imagination is more powerful than your temporary emotions. A moment of anxiety doesn't erase the mental work you've done. It can't. The subconscious mind is impressed by repetition, by feeling, by the images you consistently return to, not by every random thought that drifts through your awareness. You wouldn't judge a farmer for a weed that appears in his field after he's planted good seed. He doesn't panic and say, well, I suppose all my work is ruined now. He simply pulls it out and continues tending to what he truly wants to grow. Your mind works the same way. The anxious thought is the weed, your affirmation, your vision of peace and success. That's the crop you're cultivating. And cultivation takes precedence over the occasional intrusion. What you must understand is this: your subconscious doesn't respond to noise. It responds to conviction. It responds to the thoughts you dwell upon, the feelings you sustain, the mental images you return to again and again with acceptance and belief. A fleeting worry is just that, fleeting. It has no power unless you feed it, unless you give it your attention and emotional energy, unless you say to yourself, this worry is more real than my desire. But you don't have to do that. You have a choice in every moment. When the anxious thought comes, you can observe it without becoming it. You can say, I see you, but you are not my truth. My truth is that I am guided, protected, and supported by the infinite intelligence within me. And then you return gently, kindly to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. I've seen people sabotage themselves not because they had a negative thought, but because they reacted to that negative thought with fear and self-judgment. They turned a passing cloud into a storm by focusing on it, analyzing it, battling with it, the battling with it. The battle itself gives the thought importance. The struggle makes it seem real and threatening. Instead, let it pass. Don't fight it. Fighting only keeps you engaged with what you don't want. Simply redirect. This is not suppression, it's selection. You're choosing where to place your awareness. You're deciding which voice within you deserves the microphone. And the voice that deserves the microphone, and the voice that deserves it, is the one aligned with your desire, with love, with faith in the goodness of life. This isn't about pretending. This isn't about denial or wishful thinking. Some people hear this teaching and they say, but Dr. Murphy, I can't just ignore reality. I can't just pretend everything is fine when it's not. And I understand that concern. But here's what you must understand. You're not ignoring reality or choosing which reality you're going to build from. There are facts, yes, but facts are not fixed. Facts are temporary conditions, and every condition in your life began first as a thought, as a mental acceptance, as an inner conviction. The person who is sick has accepted sickness on some level. The person who is sick has accepted sickness on some level. The person who is poor has accepted poverty in consciousness. Now, I'm not saying they wanted it consciously. No one wants suffering, but somewhere in the deep recesses of the mind, there was an acceptance, a belief, a habitual pattern of thought that manifested as this condition. So when you begin to dwell on your desire instead of your circumstance, you're not being foolish. You're being scientific. You're working with the law. You're replanting the garden of your mind. Think of a farmer who looks at barren soil. Does he say, well, this is reality, this emptiness, so I must accept it forever? No, he plants seeds. He knows that what he cannot seeds. He knows that what he cannot see yet will emerge if he works with nature's law. You are that farmer. Your mind is that soil. Let me give you something practical. Tonight, before you sleep, you have a golden opportunity. The moments before sleep are the most impressionable moments of your day. Your conscious mind, that critical watchdog, begins to relax. The subconscious becomes receptive, like soft clay ready to be molded. This is when you must be most deliberate. Sit quietly. Close your eyes. Bring to mind the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Not the wanting, the having. Not the wanting, the having. Not the hoping, the experiencing. If you desire health, feel the energy coursing through your body. If you desire love, feel the warmth of companionship. If you desire abundance, feel the security and freedom it brings. Wrap yourself in this feeling. Saturate yourself in it. Let it be the last impression you take into sleep. Because your subconscious mind never sleeps. While your conscious mind rests, while you dream, while the world around you grows quiet, your subconscious remains awake, working, molding, creating. It takes the last dominant thought you gave it and begins to fashion it into physical reality. This is why the ancients spoke of the power of evening prayer. This is why every spiritual tradition emphasizes the moment before sleep. They understood something profound. The gateway between waking and sleeping is the gateway between worlds, between the seen and the unseen, between what is and what can be. So let me share with you a specific technique, a method I've taught to thousands, a practice that has transformed countless lives. Tonight, before you close your eyes, you're going to do something different. You're going to become the director of your own mental movie. You're going to become the director of your own mental movie. You're going to replay it over and over until you drift into sleep wrapped in its reality. Let's say you desire financial abundance. Don't just think the words, "I want money." That's weak. That's powerless. That tells your subconscious you're in a state of want, of lack. Instead, construct a scene that implies your wish is already fulfilled. Perhaps you see yourself holding a bank statement, and the numbers reflect prosperity beyond what you currently experience. Feel the paper in your hands. See the numbers clearly. Notice how calm you feel, how natural it seems. Or perhaps you're walking through your new home, the one you've been dreaming of. Feel your feet on the floor, touch the walls, smell the fresh air coming through the windows. Make it real in your imagination. The key is this: the scene must be short, simple, and imply fulfillment. Don't create an elaborate Hollywood production. Just a brief moment, 15 to 30 seconds at most, that captures the essence of your wish fulfilled. And this is crucial, you loop it. You replay it, again and again, like a short clip repeating endlessly. Each time you sink deeper into the feeling. Each time you sink deeper into the feeling. Each time it becomes more real, more natural, more true. Your conscious mind may protest at first. It may say, "This is silly, this is silly, this isn't real, you're just pretending." Let it protest, thank it for its concern, and gently return to your scene, because you're not trying to convince your conscious mind. You're impressing your subconscious mind. You're impressing your subconscious, and your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't judge. It simply accepts and creates. This is why affirming, "I am successful," when you consciously believe you're a failure, creates that internal conflict I mentioned earlier. Your conscious mind sends one message, your subconscious holds another, and you remain stuck in the pattern that already exists. But here's what changes everything. Your subconscious cannot tell the difference between a real experience and one that's vividly imagined with feeling. Let me say that again, because this is the key that unlocks everything. Your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what is real and what is imagined with emotional intensity. This is not theory. This is not theory. This is not wishful thinking. This is demonstrable fact. When you imagine something vividly, when you see it, feel it, experience it in your mind with genuine emotion, your subconscious accepts it as real. And once it accepts something as real, it begins to reorganize your entire reality to match that inner picture. Athletes have known this for decades, A basketball player who mentally rehearses free throws, seeing the ball leave his hands, watching it arc through the air, hearing the swish of the net, that player improves his actual performance. Studies have proven this time and again. Why? Because his subconscious mind experienced those successful throws. It doesn't know they happened only in imagination. It records them as actual events, as patterns to repeat. Your subconscious is recording everything right now. Every thought you think with feeling right now. Every thought you think with feeling, every image you dwell upon, every internal conversation you have with yourself, and it's using all of that data to construct your tomorrow. Most people are unconsciously creating their future based on their past. They replay old failures, rehearse old fears, imagine worst-case scenarios, and then wonder why their lives never change. They're giving their subconscious mind the wrong instructions. They're programming themselves for repetition, not transformation. But you can change this starting right now. You can begin feeding your subconscious mind new images, new feelings, new patterns. You can implant the seeds of the future you actually want. And the method for doing this is specific, it's precise, it's what I've spent my life teaching, and it works for everyone who applies it correctly. Now, I want to address something that stops most people before they even begin. They hear about this law, they understand it intellectually, they nod along, and then they say to themselves, "But that won't work for me." Why? Because they've tried before, they've hoped before, they've wished and dreamed and wanted, and nothing happened, or worse, the opposite happened. They asked for prosperity and lost their job. They visualized health and got sicker. They affirmed love and ended up more alone. So they conclude, this doesn't work, not for me, maybe for other people, but I'm different. I'm the exception. Let me tell you something with absolute certainty. You are not the exception. There are no exception. There are no exceptions to universal law. Gravity doesn't work for some people and not for others. The principle of cause and effect doesn't play favorites, and neither does your subconscious mind. If you attempted to use this law and failed, there is only one reason. You didn't actually impress your subconscious mind with the belief you thought you were impressing it with. You see, here's where most people go wrong. They think that by repeating words, by saying affirmations 20 times a day, by creating vision boards and staring at them, they're programming their subconscious. But all the while, underneath those words, underneath those images, there's a deeper belief running. A belief that says, this won't work, I don't deserve this is too good for me, people like me don't get what they want. That deeper belief, that quiet conviction in your unworthiness or your impossibility, that is what your subconscious hears. That is what your subconscious hears. That is what it accepts. That is what it creates. Your subconscious mind doesn't listen to your words. It responds to your feeling. It accepts what you truly believe, not what you wish you believed, not what you wish you believed. And if there's a conflict between your conscious desire and your subconscious conviction wins every single time. This is why I emphasize feeling over everything else. You must feel the reality of what you desire. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not hope for it, not want it, but feel as though it is already yours, already true, already done. When you do this correctly, when you succeed in generating that feeling and sustaining it, your subconscious has no choice but to accept it. And once it accepts it, the entire machinery of your mind begins working to make it manifest in your physical reality. This is why so many people fail when they try to use affirmations or visualization. They say the words, they picture the scene, but inside, they don't feel it. They remain emotionally disconnected from what they're declaring. And emotion, my friend, is the language of the subconscious. Without it, you're just making noise. Let me give you a concrete example. Suppose you want to attract financial abundance into your life. You can stand in front of a mirror every morning and recite, I am wealthy, I am prosperous, money flows to me easily. But if while you're saying these words, your stomach is tight with anxiety about your bills, if your mind is simultaneously showing you images of your empty bank account, if you feel poor and worried, then what are you really impressing upon your subconscious? Not wealth. You're impressing poverty, lack and fear. The words themselves have no power. It's the feeling state behind them that does the work. Your subconscious doesn't understand English or any other language in the intellectual sense. It understands feelings, emotions, and the mental images that accompany them. It responds to the dominant emotional tone of your thoughts. So when you affirm something, you must do more than speak. You must do more than speak. You must embody the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must close your eyes and imagine yourself already living in that state of wealth. Feel the relief, the freedom, the security that comes with financial abundance. Feel the joy of being able to give generously, to purchase what you need without hesitation, to live without the constant gnawing anxiety about money. This is not pretending. This is not pretending. This is not self-deception. This is a deliberate use of your imagination to create a specific emotional state that your subconscious will accept as true and then work tirelessly to make manifest in your outer world. I want you to understand something fundamental. Your subconscious is always working. It never sleeps, never takes a break, never stops creating. The question is not whether it will create, but what it will create. And what it creates is always determined by the habitual patterns of thought and feeling you impress upon it. If you habitually feel worried, your subconscious creates circumstances that justify more worry. If you habitually feel grateful and abundant, it creates circumstances that give you more reasons to feel grateful and abundant. It's mechanical, impersonal, and absolutely reliable. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, are you sure about that? It doesn't say, you sure about that? It doesn't fact-check your beliefs or question your assumptions. It simply accepts what you consistently impress upon it and proceeds to manifest those impressions in your experience. This is why two people can go through the exact same situation and have completely different outcomes. One person loses their job and falls into despair, attracting more financial difficulties and closed doors. Another person loses their job and sees it as liberation, an opportunity for something better, and within weeks finds themselves in a superior position. Same circumstance, different mental attitude, different results. I want you to understand something crucial here. Your subconscious is not punishing you when things go wrong, and it's not rewarding you when things go right. It's not rewarding you when things go right. It's simply being obedient. It's fulfilling its function with perfect precision. When you understand this, you stop feeling like a victim of circumstance and start recognizing yourself as the creator of your experience. Let me share with you how this works in the realm of relationships. I've counseled countless individuals who complained that they always attracted the wrong kind of people into their lives. Why do I keep meeting people who disappoint me? They'd ask. And when I questioned them about their habitual thoughts regarding people and relationships, the answer was always the same. They expected disappointment. They harbored deep-seated beliefs that people couldn't be trusted, that everyone eventually lets you down, that genuine connection was rare or impossible. Their subconscious mind, being the faithful servant it is, arranged their life experiences to match those beliefs. They would literally walk past kind, trustworthy people without noticing them, while being magnetically drawn to individuals who would validate their negative expectations. They weren't consciously choosing this, their subconscious was simply fulfilling the orders it had been given through years of habitual negative thinking. The moment they began to consciously impress new beliefs upon their subconscious beliefs about the abundance of good people, the possibility of authentic connection, the trustworthiness that exists in the world, their external circumstances began to shift, not through forced action, but through natural attraction. They began encountering different types of people. Existing relationships improved. Opportunities for meaningful connection appeared where none had existed before. This same principle applies to your health, your finances, your career, every aspect of your life. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between categories. It doesn't say, I'll work on relationships but not on money, or I'll heal your body but not your circumstances. It operates with the same law, the same power, across every dimension of your existence. I once worked with a businessman who was struggling financially. His business was failing, debts were mounting. His business was failing, debts were mounting, and he saw no way out. He came to me desperate, asking what he should do. I told him what I'm telling you now. Change the image in your mind, he protested, as many do. But the situation is real, he said. The debts are actual. The bank statements don't lie. I agreed. The outer circumstances were indeed real. But I asked him this, what image do you hold in your mind when you think about your finances? He paused. Then he admitted that every day, multiple times a day, he pictured himself bankrupt. He imagined losing his home. He saw himself unable to provide for his family. He rehearsed conversations where he had to tell people he had failed. That, I told him, is what your subconscious is working to create, not because it wants to harm you, but because it wants to harm you, but because it assumes that whatever you consistently imagine is what you want. I instructed him to change the mental image, not to deny his present circumstances, but to stop feeding energy into the picture of failure. Instead, I asked him to spend time each day, morning and night, visualizing his business thriving, to see himself paying his debts with ease, to feel the relief and gratitude of financial stability. He was skeptical but desperate enough to try. Within weeks, unexpected things began to happen. A client he thought he'd lost returned with a larger contract. An old debt owed to him was suddenly repaid. New opportunities emerged from seemingly nowhere. Within 6 months, his business had completely turned around. He wasn't doing anything dramatically different externally. The shift happened first in consciousness, and the outer world rearranged itself to match. This is the principle that governs all manifestation. Consciousness creates circumstances, never the other way around. The world you see around you, your relationships, your bank account, your health, your opportunities, these are not separate from you. They are projections of your inner states of belief and feeling. Now, I want to address something that troubles many people. They say, but Joseph, I've been affirming for weeks, for months even, and nothing has changed. I'm saying the words, but my life stays the same. Let me be clear with you, affirmations alone are not enough if they're merely intellectual exercises. You can repeat, I am prosperous, 1,000 times a day, but if you feel poor while saying it, if you're arguing with the statement in your mind, you're impressing poverty, not prosperity, on your subconscious. The feeling is the secret. The emotion you attach to your thought gives it fertilizing power. When you affirm something, you must feel the truth of it. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to feel something artificial. It means relaxing into the natural feeling of already having what you desire. Think of an actor preparing for a role. The great actors don't merely memorize lines, they become the character. They feel what that character would feel. They feel what that character would feel. They move through the world as that person. This is what you must do with your ideal. You must live from the end result, not toward it. Here's a practical way to work with this principle. Before you fall asleep each night, your conscious mind becomes less active, and your subconscious becomes more receptive. This is the ideal time to impress new patterns upon it. As you lie in bed, construct a simple scene that would naturally occur if your desire were already fulfilled. If you seek healing, imagine a friend congratulating you on how well you look. If you desire a new position, imagine sitting at your new desk or shaking hands with your new colleagues. Keep the scene brief and simple. Repeat it over and over until it takes on a feeling of reality. Don't watch yourself in the scene, be in it, looking out through your own eyes. Feel the reality of it. Then, saturated with this feeling, drift off to sleep. You are planting seeds in the most fertile soil in the universe, your subconscious mind. The subconscious accepts what you feel to be true. It doesn't argue or reason. It simply accepts and produces. This is why affirmations work, but only when charged with feeling. You can stand in front of a mirror and repeat, I am confident 1,000 times. But if your heart feels fear, if your stomach churns with doubt, your subconscious receives the message of fear, not confidence. The words are merely vehicles. The feeling is the fuel. I've watched people sabotage themselves with this misunderstanding. They recite their affirmations mechanically, like robots reading from a script, all while their inner emotional state contradicts every word. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Your subconscious doesn't hear your words. It feels your convictions. Let me share something that transformed my own understanding. Years ago, I worked with a woman who desperately wanted to heal a relationship with her estranged daughter. She would pray every night, asking for reconciliation. But each time she prayed, she felt the pain of separation, the bitterness of past arguments, the hopelessness of the situation. Her prayers were actually reinforcing the very condition she wanted to change. I taught her to shift her approach. Instead of praying from her current painful state, I asked her to imagine the relationship already healed, to feel the warmth of her daughter's embrace, to hear the laughter they would share, to experience the gratitude of reunion as though it had already happened. Within 3 months, her daughter reached out. The circumstances that had kept them apart seemed to dissolve naturally. Was this magic? No. It was alignment. When her emotional state matched her desired outcome, her subconscious went to work orchestrating the circumstances, opportunities, and inner changes necessary for reconciliation. This is the great secret. Your subconscious is always working, always creating, always manifesting. The question is not whether it's active, but what instructions you're giving it through your habitual feeling states. Think about worry for a moment. Worry is negative goal setting. When you worry, you imagine vividly what you don't want. You feel the emotions of that unwanted outcome. You repeat this mental rehearsal over and over, and your subconscious, faithful servant that it is, begins to move you toward that imagined disaster. You've given it clear instructions through sustained emotional imagination. The same mechanism that creates through worry can create through faith. The power is neutral. The direction comes from you. Think of it this way. Your subconscious mind is like the most powerful computer ever created. But here's the thing, it doesn't have a delete button for false instructions. It simply accepts what you feed it. If you tell it, I'm not good with money, it doesn't argue. It doesn't say, wait, let me check your bank records. It just says, okay, you're not good with money. Let me make sure that becomes your reality. I've watched people do this their entire lives. They program themselves for lack, for sickness, for loneliness, and then they wonder why these things keep showing up. They blame the economy, their upbringing, their genes, bad luck. But the truth is simpler and more empowering than any of that. You've been programming yourself all along. Now, here's where this gets really interesting. Once you understand that your thoughts are creative, that they actually produce tangible results in your life, you begin to take responsibility for them. Not blame, responsibility. There's a difference. Blame says, I'm a victim of my thoughts. Responsibility says, I am the author of my thoughts, and I can write a new story starting right now. Let me give you a practical example. I knew a man who came to me with a failing business. He was convinced the market had turned against him. Every morning he'd wake up and think, another day of struggling, another day of struggling, another day of barely scraping by. And you know what? That's exactly what he got. His business continued to decline. I asked him to try something simple. Every night before sleep, and every night before sleep, and every morning upon waking, repeat one statement: my business is divinely guided and prospers in every way. That's it. No complicated ritual, no complicated ritual, no special technique, just a clear, positive instruction to his subconscious mind. He resisted at first. He said, but Joseph, that's not true. My business is failing. And I told him what I'm telling you now. Your subconscious doesn't care what's true in your current reality. It cares what you in your current reality. It cares what you instruct it to create as your next reality. Within 3 months, his business had completely turned around. New clients appeared. Old debts were paid. Opportunities he hadn't seen before suddenly became obvious. Did the market change? No. His mind changed. And when his mind changed, his perception changed. And when his perception changed, his actions changed. And when his actions changed, his results changed. His mind became the architect of his new reality, not through struggle, not through force, through understanding. And this is where most people get confused. They think changing your mind means positive thinking. They think it means affirmations. They think it means repeating words you don't believe while your subconscious screams the opposite. That's not what I'm talking about. Changing your mind means changing your assumptions. It means changing your assumptions. It means changing what you accept as true about yourself and your world. It means going deeper than surface thoughts into the realm where your beliefs live. Let me show you what I mean. There's a woman I worked with years ago. She came to me exhausted. She'd been trying to manifest abundance for 3 years. She had vision boards. She had affirmations. She had gratitude journals. She did everything the books told her to do, but nothing changed. So I asked her a simple question. When you think about money, what do you feel? She paused. Then she said, anxiety. And when you imagine having wealth? Another pause. Fear. Fear of what? That I'll lose it, that people will judge me, that I'll become someone I don't recognize. There it was. Her conscious mind wanted abundance, but her subconscious mind wanted abundance, but her subconscious mind associated abundance with loss, judgment, and identity destruction. She was trying to drive forward with the emergency brake on. Her affirmations weren't working because they weren't addressing her actual beliefs. They were just noise on top of a foundation of fear. So we didn't work on manifesting. We worked on feeling. We worked on assumption. I had her sit quietly every night before sleep. Not to affirm, not to visualize, just to feel what it would be like if wealth felt safe, if prosperity felt natural, if abundance was just her normal state of being. No force, no effort, just gentle, consistent immersion in a new feeling state. Within 2 months, everything shifted. A business opportunity appeared. An old debt was forgiven. A skill she'd forgotten about suddenly became valuable. The universe didn't change. Her mind changed. And when her mind changed, the universe rearranged itself to match. Because here's what you must understand. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue. It doesn't judge. It doesn't question. It simply accepts what you consistently impress upon it and moves to make it real. This is why it's so vital to become the guardian of your own mind. You cannot afford to let random thoughts, fears, and doubts drift through your consciousness unchecked. Your subconsciousness unchecked. Your subconscious is always listening. It's recording every mental whisper, every emotional tremor, every repeated phrase you say to yourself when no one else is around. Think about the conversations you have in the silence of your own mind. What do you tell yourself when you look in the mirror? When you check your bank account? When you think about your future? These internal dialogues aren't idle chatter, they're instructions. They're commands being delivered directly to the creative power within you. I've seen people sabotage their own success with nothing more than habitual negative self-talk. A man prays for prosperity but tells himself throughout the day, "I'll never get ahead. Money just slips through my fingers." A woman affirms health in the morning, then spends her afternoon worrying about every ache and discomfort, mentally rehearsing illness. They wonder why their prayers seem unanswered, not realizing they've been countermanding their own requests with contradictory mental impressions. The subcontradictory mental impressions. The subconscious doesn't hear what you say once with hope. It responds to what you repeat with feeling and conviction. Repetition and emotion, these are the twin keys that unlock its creative power. A thought charged with feeling repeated consistently becomes a belief, and a belief impressed upon the subconscious becomes a reality in your experience. This is precisely why affirmations work when they're done correctly. You're not trying to convince the universe. You're not bargaining with God. You're not bargaining with God. You're impressing a new pattern upon your subconscious mind, overwriting the old program with a new one. You're planting a seed in fertile soil and trusting the creative intelligence within you to bring it to harvest. But here's what most people miss. The affirmation must bypass the critical, analytical, conscious mind. If you say, "I am wealthy," while your conscious mind screams, "No, you're not. Look at your bills," you've created internal conflict. The subconscious receives mixed signals, and your results will reflect that confusion. This is why the feeling of truth is so essential. When you say, "I am wealthy," and you feel prosperous, when those words resonate in your being as natural and right, then the conscious and subconscious are in harmony. There's no resistance, no argument, no internal debate. The subconscious accepts it as fact and begins to materialize it in your external world. Think of it this way: your subconscious mind is like fertile soil. It doesn't care what you plant, weeds or flowers, poison or nourishment. It will grow whatever seeds you consistently plant. If you plant seeds of doubt while occasionally tossing in seeds of doubt, while occasionally tossing in seeds of desire, you'll get a confused garden. But if you plant clear, emotion-backed seeds of your desired reality, and you tend to them with feeling and repetition, your harvest is inevitable. Now, here's where many people stumble. They try to use willpower to force belief. They grit their teeth and affirm something over and over, hoping that sheer repetition will override their doubts. But willpower alone cannot impress the subconscious. In fact, the harder you try to force it, the more resistance you create. It's like trying to force it, the more resistance you create. It's like trying to fall asleep by commanding yourself, "I will sleep now." The very effort keeps you awake. Instead, you must use a gentler, more intelligent approach. You must bypass the conscious mind's critical faculty and speak directly to the subconscious in its own language, the language of feeling, imagination, and acceptance. This is where techniques like meditation, visualization, and the drowsy state before sleep become so powerful. In these relaxed states, your conscious guard is down and your subconscious is most receptive. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose you want to overcome a financial challenge. Rather than desperately affirming, I need money," which only reinforces the lack, you would instead enter a quiet, relaxed state. In this state, you would imagine the feeling of financial freedom. Not the money itself necessarily, but the feeling. How would you feel if you opened your bank account and saw abundance? How would you walk, breathe, speak if money were no concern? Capture that feeling, live in it, let it saturate your being. The subconscious cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you feel prosperous in your imagination, your subconscious accepts it as reality and begins to create circumstances, ideas, and opportunities that match that inner state. This is why the feeling is everything. You can repeat affirmations mechanically all day long, but if there's no feeling behind them, they're just empty words bouncing around in your conscious mind. They never penetrate deep enough to take root. But when you speak your affirmation with conviction, when you feel the truth of it in your bones, when you allow yourself to experience the joy and relief and gratitude as if it were already done, that's when the subconscious receives the instruction clearly. I've seen people transform their financial situations not by working harder, but by changing their inner conviction about money. A man came to me once, drowning in debt, working 2 jobs, exhausted and desperate. I asked him a simple question: "How do you feel about money?" His answer revealed everything. "Money is evil," he said. "Rich people are corrupt. Money causes nothing but problems." Do you see the conflict? He wanted money desperately, yet his subconscious was programmed to reject it, to see it as something dangerous and corrupting. His outer circumstances were simply reflecting his inner beliefs. We worked together to change those beliefs. He began to see money as a neutral tool, as energy that could be used for good, as something that could be used for good, as something that could provide security for his family and allow him to contribute to causes he cared about. He started a new practice every night before sleep. He would imagine himself opening his bank statement and seeing an abundant balance. He would feel the relief, the freedom, the peace of mind. He didn't focus on the how. That wasn't his job. His job was simply to feel financially secure in his imagination. Within months, unexpected opportunities appeared. A former colleague offered him a better position. An old investment he'd forgotten about matured. Ideas for a side business came to him seemingly out of nowhere. Was this magic? No, it was law, the law of mind. When his inner world changed, his outer world had no choice but to follow. This is the principle you must grasp with absolute clarity. Your subconscious mind does not argue with you. It does not debate. It does not debate. It does not question whether what you're telling it is true or false, good or bad, constructive or destructive. It simply accepts. It accepts the thought patterns you habitually impress upon it, and then it moves heaven and earth to make them your reality. Think about what this means for your life right now. If you walk through your days thinking, "I never have enough," your subconscious accepts this as an instruction. It begins to arrange circumstances that confirm this belief. Opportunities pass you by. Money slips through your fingers. Doors close just as you approach them, not because the universe is against you, but because you have given your subconscious mind a blueprint, and it is faithfully executing that design. But the moment you change the instruction, everything changes. When you begin to think, "I am abundantly supplied," when you feel this truth in your heart, when you feel this truth in your heart, when you make it your habitual mental attitude, your subconscious accepts this new instruction with the same neutral obedience. Now it begins to attract opportunities. Ideas come to you. People appear who can help. People appear who can help. Paths open that you never knew existed. I have seen this happen thousands upon thousands of times. A woman came to me once, weeping, saying she was destined to be alone. She had been abandoned as a child, betrayed in relationships, and now believed deep in her soul that love was not meant for her. I asked her one question: "Are you willing to change your mind?" She looked at me, confused. "Change my mind about what?" she asked. "About your story," I said. "About who you are and what you deserve." We worked together to build a new mental image. Every morning and every night she would sit quietly and imagine herself loved, cherished, valued. She would feel the warmth of companionship. She would feel the warmth of companionship. She would see herself laughing with someone who adored her. At first it felt false, like she was lying to herself. But I told her to persist. The subconscious does not know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. If you imagine it with feeling, with conviction, it accepts it as fact. Within 6 months, she met a man who treated her with a kindness she had never known. Within a year, they were married. She wrote to me later and said, "I didn't find love. I became someone who expected love, and then love found me." Do you see? The external world is a mirror. It reflects back to you the contents of your consciousness. And once you realize this, you cannot unsee it. You begin to notice it everywhere. The colleague who always complains about being overlooked you noticed how they shrink in meetings, how they apologize before they even speak. The friend who says they want a relationship but somehow only attracts unavailable partners. Listen to how they speak about themselves when they think no one is listening. "I'm too much. I'm not enough. I always mess things up." These aren't just words. They are commands to the subconscious mind. They are instructions for reality. I want you to spend one full day listening to yourself. Not just your spoken words, but the silent commentary running beneath everything you do. The thoughts you think while looking in the mirror. The thoughts you think while looking in the mirror. The internal response when someone compliments you. The automatic assumption you make when opportunity appears. Most people, if they did this honestly, would be horrified. Because they did this honestly, would be horrified. Because they would discover they have been their own worst enemy all along. They have been speaking to themselves the way they would never speak to someone they loved. And the subconscious, loyal servant that it is, has been faithfully creating a life that matches those words. This is why affirmations work. Not because they are magic spells, but because they are magic spells, but because they interrupt the pattern of negative self-talk and replace it with new instructions. When you say, I am confident and capable, you are not lying to yourself. You are planting a seed in the only garden that matters, your inner world. But here is what most people get wrong about affirmations. They say the words while their entire being screams the opposite. They say, I am wealthy, while mentally calculating their debt. They say, I am healthy, while obsessing over every symptom. They say, I am loved, while bracing for rejection. The words while bracing for rejection, the words are empty without the feeling, without the belief, without the assumption that it is already true. You must speak to your subconscious the way you would speak to a child you adore, with patience, with conviction, with feeling. Not as someone begging for scraps, but as someone reminding that child of who they really are. Because your subconscious does not hear what you say. It hears what you mean, it feels what you believe, and it creates accordingly. That's why affirmations that feel hollow don't work. You can stand in front of a mirror and repeat, I am wealthy, see, 1,000 times. But if underneath those words your subconscious is screaming, no, you're broke and always will be, nothing changes. The subconscious wins every time. It doesn't respond to the words you recite, it responds to the words you recite, it responds to the feeling behind them. This is where most people get stuck. They think repetition alone is enough. But repetition alone is enough. But repetition without feeling is just noise. It's like planting seeds in concrete. Nothing grows. The real work isn't in what you say. It's in what you feel while you're saying it. It's in convincing the deeper part of you, the part that actually runs the show, that what you're claiming is already true. And here's the fascinating part. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between something vividly imagined and something actually experienced. To your subconscious, a mental image charged with emotion is as real as a physical event. This is why visualization works. This is why visualization works. This is why people who mentally rehearse success often perform as if they've already done it before. Athletes use this all the time. They see themselves crossing the finish line. They feel the weight of the medal. They feel the weight of the medal. They hear the crowd. And when the actual moment comes, their body responds as if it's done this 100 times. Because in the subconscious it has. You can do the same thing with anything you want, but you have to give your subconscious something it can work with. Not vague wishes, not desperate pleas, not words you don't believe. You have to give it clear, emotionally charged images of what you want, as if it's already yours. Picture yourself living in that home. Feel the floor beneath your feet, smell the air, touch the walls. Make it real in your mind until your subconscious accepts it as fact. That's when it starts working to bring it into reality. Because your subconscious is always working, always creating, always manifesting. The only question is, what are you giving it to work with? If you're feeding it to work with, if you're feeding it fear, worry, and doubt, that's what it creates more of. If you're feeding it confidence, gratitude, and clear intention, it creates that instead. This isn't mysticism. This is how your mind works. This is how your mind works. The subconscious is the builder. Consciousness is the architect. You give the blueprint. It handles the construction. You don't need to understand the mechanics of cellular regeneration. You don't need a PhD in quantum physics. You don't need to know how your heart beats or how your lungs extract oxygen from air. These things happen automatically, governed by intelligence far beyond conscious comprehension. Your only job is to provide the instruction, the feeling, the conviction. Think about it this way. When you plant a seed in the ground, do you dig it up every day to check if it's growing? Do you lecture the seed on how to become a tree? Do you lecture the seed on how to become a tree? Do you anxiously supervise the process, worried that maybe this particular seed doesn't know what it's doing? Of course not. You plant it, you water it, you trust the intelligence within that seed to do what seeds have done for millions of years. Your desires work the same way. You plant the mental seed through feeling and assumption. You nourish it with faith and persistence. And you trust the creative intelligence of your subconscious to bring it into visible form. But here's where most people sabotage themselves. They plant the seed on Monday, then dig it up on Tuesday to see if anything's happened. They water it with faith in the morning, then pour doubt and anxiety all over it in the afternoon. They declare their desire with conviction at night, then spend the entire next day contradicting it with worry. This is not planting. This is not planting. This is chaos. If you truly want to see your desires manifest, you must learn the art of mental gardening. Plant once, water consistently, and leave the seed undisturbed to do its work beneath the surface. I've watched people torture themselves with this constant checking. They affirm abundance in the morning, then check their bank account 20 times during the day, each time feeling disappointed that nothing's changed. They visualize perfect health at night, then spend all day monitoring every sensation in their body, searching for evidence of illness. This is not faith. This is not faith. This is fear disguised as vigilance. Real faith means you plant the seed and walk away knowing it's done. You don't need to see the sprout to know the seed is working. You don't need external validation to maintain internal conviction. The three-dimensional world is always showing you yesterday's beliefs. What you see around you now is the crystallized form of what you accepted as true in the past. If you judge your present mental diet by present circumstances, you'll never break the cycle. You must have the courage to assume the wish fulfilled even when your senses scream the opposite. You must persist in the new assumption even when the old world hasn't yet faded. This is the test. This is where most people abandon the journey right before the breakthrough. Think of it this way: when a woman is pregnant, there's a period where nothing shows. To the outside world, she looks exactly the same. But internally, cell by cell, moment by moment, a new life is forming. She doesn't doubt the pregnancy just because she can't see the baby yet. She doesn't say, well, I don't look pregnant, so I must not be pregnant. No, she knows. She prepares. She acts from that knowing. Your new assumption is gestating in exactly the same way. Just because the external world hasn't rearranged itself yet doesn't mean your inner work is failing. The invisible is always more real than the visible. The seed beneath the soil is doing its most important work in the darkness, where no eye can witness it. This is why I tell you, live in the end. Don't live in the middle. Don't live in the middle. Don't live in the waiting room of your life, constantly checking your watch, wondering when your manifestation will arrive. Live as though it has already arrived, not as a pretense, not as a pretense, not as a desperate act of make-believe, but as a deep, settled knowing. When you live in the end, you stop asking when and start experiencing now. You walk differently. You walk differently. You speak differently. Your energy shifts because you're no longer reaching for something outside yourself. You're expressing something that's already within you. I've seen people transform their entire lives by this single shift. A man who assumed he was successful stopped hunching his shoulders and apologizing for his presence. A woman who assumed she was loved stopped overgiving and people-pleasing. They didn't wait for the world to give them permission. They gave themselves permission first, and the world had no choice but to follow. You see, the world is a mirror, not a giver. It reflects back to you what you are convinced is true. If you walk through life convinced is true, if you walk through life convinced that opportunities are scarce, that love is hard to find, that success requires struggle, the mirror will show you exactly that. But if you dare to assume the opposite, if you dare to embody the state of your wish fulfilled, the mirror must shift. It has no other option. This is not philosophy. This is law. It's as reliable as gravity, as predictable as the sunrise. You cannot hold a feeling of wealth and experience poverty. You cannot hold a feeling of wealth and experience poverty. You cannot sustain the assumption of health and remain sick. The outer must conform to the inner, always. The law is impersonal. It doesn't care about your history. It doesn't ask how long you've been sick, how many doctors you've seen, or what your diagnosis is. The law responds to your mental acceptance right now, in this moment. It has no memory of yesterday's fears unless you carry them forward into today. I've seen people cling to their illness like a security blanket. They wear it as an identity. I'm a diabetic. I'm an arthritis sufferer. I have a weak heart. They introduce themselves by their condition. They build their entire self-concept around limitation. And the subconscious mind, ever faithful, ever obedient, says, yes, that's who you are, and maintains the condition perfectly. But I've also witnessed the opposite. A woman came to me once who had been diagnosed with a progressive condition. The doctors gave her a timeline, a prediction of decline. She listened politely, then she made a decision. She said to me, I refuse to accept that as my future. I accept only perfect health. And she meant it. Not as a desperate wish, not as a fearful hope, but as a calm inner knowing. Every morning she would spend time in quiet contemplation, feeling herself whole, healthy, vital. She didn't fight the diagnosis. She didn't argue with the doctors. She didn't argue with the doctors. She simply withdrew her mental consent from the verdict. She stopped identifying with the condition. When someone asked how she was, she said, I'm wonderfully well, thank you. Not as a lie, but as a statement of her inner conviction. Within months, the symptoms began to reverse. The doctors were baffled. The doctors were baffled. They ran more tests. They called it spontaneous remission, an anomaly, a mystery. But there was no mystery to her. She had simply changed her inner assumption, and the outer world had no choice but to conform. This is not magic. This is not magic. This is law, the same law that grows an oak tree from an acorn, the same law that grows an oak tree from an acorn, the same law that heals a cut on your finger without your conscious effort. Your body is designed to be healthy. It wants to be healthy. It wants to be whole. But you must give it the right mental pattern to follow. Your assumption is the mold. Your body is the substance that fills it. Change the mold, and you change the form. It cannot be otherwise. This is why the man who constantly thinks of himself as poor, struggling and limited will find his body, his health, his circumstances all reflecting that inner conviction. His subconscious mind accepts the pattern and reproduces it faithfully in his flesh and his affairs. I've seen this so clearly in my years of counseling. A woman came to me once, her body bent with what she called inherited arthritis. Her mother had it, her grandmother had it, her grandmother had it, and now she had it. It runs in the family, she told me with absolute certainty. But as we talked, I discovered something more revealing than genetics. I discovered a pattern of thought that had indeed been inherited not through blood, but through belief. 3 generations of women who had learned to expect suffering, to anticipate pain, to wear their discomfort like a badge of martyrdom. The body simply obeyed the silent command of the mind. When she began to change her mental blueprint to see herself whole, flexible, free, her body began to respond. Not overnight, but consistently. The mold was changing, and the substance was filling the new form. You see, your body is always listening. It hears every thought you think about it. When you say, "I always get sick in winter," your subconscious says, "Very well, we shall arrange that." When you declare, "I'm too old for that," your body agrees and adjusts accordingly. When you insist, "I've never been athletic," every cell accepts this as instruction. But the reverse is equally true. When you begin to impress upon your subconscious mind a new image of vitality, of strength, of youthful energy, your body begins to conform to this new pattern. The life force flowing through you doesn't know age or limitation. It only knows the pattern you give it. This is not self-deception. This is not pretending illness doesn't exist while refusing treatment. This is the recognition of a profound truth, that consciousness precedes form, that thought shapes matter, that the mental blueprint determines the physical structure. Think of a seed. Within that tiny capsule lies the complete pattern of the oak tree or the rose bush. The soil, the water, the sunlight, these are the substances that will take the form of the pattern within the seed. Your thoughts are the seeds, your subconscious mind is the soil, and your life, your body, your circumstances, these are the harvest. What seeds are you planting today? Now, I want you to understand something profound. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge the seeds you plant. It doesn't say, "Oh, this is a good thought, I'll accept it. This is a bad thought, I'll accept it. This is a bad thought, I'll reject it." No, it accepts everything. It's completely impartial, completely neutral. It's like the soil that accepts whatever seed you plant, whether it's wheat or thorns, roses or weeds. This is why you must become the watchman at the gate of your mind. You must become the watchman at the gate of your mind. You must stand guard over your thoughts, your beliefs, your internal dialogue. Because every thought you entertain, every image you dwell upon, every word you speak with feeling, these are all seeds going into the subconscious. And the subconscious, in its wisdom and power, will bring forth after its kind. I've seen people struggle for years, wondering why their life doesn't change. They go to seminars, they read books, they try technique after technique after technique, but nothing seems to work. And when you look closely, you discover something remarkable. They're sabotaging themselves with their own thoughts. They affirm prosperity in the morning, then spend the entire day worrying about bills. They declare health and vitality, then immediately think, "But that never works for me. I'm always sick." You cannot plant seeds of fear and expect a harvest of courage. You cannot plant seeds of fear and expect a harvest of courage. You cannot plant seeds of lack and limitation and expect abundance to appear. The law is exact. The law is precise. As within, so without. As in consciousness, so in experience. Let me share something that might surprise you. Your subconscious mind is working right now, at this very moment, as you listen to these words. It's working while you sleep. It's working while you sleep. It's working while you're conscious and while you're unconscious. It never stops. It's maintaining your heartbeat, regulating your breathing, healing cuts and bruises, fighting off illness all without your conscious direction. This same power that heals your body can heal your circumstances. This same intelligence that orchestrates the trillion functions happening in your body right now can orchestrate the events and circumstances of your life. But you must give it the right instructions. You must impress upon it the right patterns, the right beliefs, the right mental images. Your subconscious mind is like a faithful servant. It doesn't question what you tell it. It doesn't question what you tell it. It doesn't argue with your convictions. It simply accepts what you habitually think and feel as true, and then proceeds to make it so in your external world. This is why two people can be in the exact same situation, with the same resources, the same opportunities, yet produce completely different results. The difference is not in their circumstances, it's in their consciousness. I want you to understand something profound. You are not a victim of your past programming. You are not a victim of your past programming. You can reprogram yourself starting right now. Every thought you think, every feeling you cultivate, every mental image you dwell upon is either reinforcing your old patterns or establishing new ones. There is no neutral ground. You are always impressing something upon your subconscious mind. Think of a person who constantly says, "I never have enough money, I'm always broke, nothing ever works out for me financially." That person is not describing reality, they are creating it. They are creating it. They are giving their subconscious mind a command, a blueprint to follow, and their faithful servant obeys. It arranges circumstances, influences decisions, and colors perceptions in ways that validate that belief. The opportunities that could lead to prosperity are overlooked. The ideas that could generate wealth are dismissed. The actions that could improve their situation are avoided, all because the subconscious is working to maintain consistency with the dominant mental pattern. Now contrast that with someone who says, "Money flows to me easily. I am a magnet for abundance. Every day I discover new opportunities for prosperity." This person has given their subconscious mind a completely different set of instructions. Their inner servant now works tirelessly to manifest experiences that match this conviction. They match this conviction. They notice opportunities others miss. They feel confident taking actions others fear. They attract people and circumstances that support their financial growth. The external circumstances that support their financial growth. The external circumstances may start out identical for both people, but within weeks and months, their lives will begin to diverge dramatically. Same world, different consciousness, different results. Now, I want to address something that stops many people dead in their tracks on this journey, the fear of being specific. They've been wounded by disappointment. They've been wounded by disappointment. They've asked for things before and didn't get them, so now they keep their desires vague, fuzzy, non-committal. They say things like, "I just want to be comfortable," or "I'd like a little more money." This is protection, not prayer. This is protection, not prayer. This is hedging your bets with the universe. Let me be direct with you. Vagueness is the enemy of manifestation. Your subconscious mind responds to clear, definite images. It's like placing an order at a restaurant. You wouldn't tell the waiter, "Oh, just bring me something edible." You'd be specific. You'd say exactly what you want. The universe operates the same way. When you say, "I want more money," your subconscious doesn't know what to do with that. More than what? $5 is more money. Is that what you want? But when you say, "I am now earning $10,000 a month doing work I love," you've given your subconscious mind a clear target. It can now begin to align your thoughts, feelings, and actions toward that specific outcome. I've watched people transform their financial lives simply by getting specific. A woman once told me she wanted a better job. I asked her to describe it in detail. At first she struggled. Then, as she began to articulate exactly what she wanted, the type of work, the environment, the income, the relationships with colleagues, something shifted in her countenance. Her eyes brightened. She became animated. Within 6 weeks, she was offered a position that matched her description almost perfectly. It had been available the whole time, but she hadn't been vibrating at the frequency to recognize it. Here's what happens when you get specific. You activate the reticular activating system in your brain. This is the filter, the reticular activating system in your brain. This is the filter that determines what information gets through to your conscious awareness. When you're specific about what you want, this system begins to notice opportunities, ideas, and resources that were invisible to you before. They were always there. You simply weren't tuned to see them. Being specific also eliminates the wiggle room for self-sabotage. When your goal is vague, it's easy to convince yourself that you've achieved it, even when you haven't. Or it's easy to keep moving the goalposts. Specificity creates accountability. It creates a clear yes or no. Either you're manifesting what you declared or you're not. And here's what happens when you declared or you're not. And here's what happens when you get specific. Your subconscious mind has a clear blueprint to work with. It's not wandering around in the fog anymore. It knows exactly what to construct. It starts arranging circumstances, drawing opportunities, aligning synchronicities all toward that precise outcome. I've watched people transform their financial lives simply by changing "I want more money" to "I am now earning $10,000 per month through my consulting business." The difference isn't just semantic, it's energetic, it's architectural. You're giving your subconscious mind the exact specifications for what you're building. Now, let me address something that trips people up constantly. They confuse specificity with limitation. They think, if I ask for $10,000, won't I block myself from receiving $50,000? No, that's not how this works. When you specify $10,000, you're not putting a ceiling on abundance. You're establishing a foundation. You're proving to establishing a foundation. You're proving to yourself that you can consciously direct your subconscious mind toward a definite outcome. Once you manifest that $10,000, your confidence expands, your belief system upgrades. Then you can specify $50,000 with the same certainty because you've already demonstrated the principle works. Specificity doesn't limit you, it focuses you. And focus is what creates results. Here's another layer to this. When you're specific, you engage your emotions more powerfully. Think about it. "I want to be happy" doesn't create much feeling. But I am joyfully waking up every morning in my home by the ocean, feeling the salt air on my skin as I drink my coffee on the balcony. That creates an emotional reality. You can feel it, you can see it, you can practically taste that coffee. And emotion is the fuel that powers manifestation. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to the emotional conviction behind your thoughts. When you're specific enough to feel it, you're impressing your subconscious with the reality of your desire. Let me give you a technique I've shared with countless people, the precise moment technique. Instead of affirming something vaguely throughout your day, choose one specific moment, say, right before you fall asleep, and spend 5 focused minutes visualizing your specific desire with total emotional involvement. See it in detail. Feel it completely. Make it so real in your mind that your body responds as if it's happening now. When you do this consistently, you're not scattering your power. You're concentrating it like a laser beam on your target. Now, let me share something that might surprise you. The people who struggle most with this principle are often the most intelligent, the most educated. Why? Because they've been trained to analyze everything, to question everything, to see all the obstacles before they take a single step. I've worked with brilliant minds, doctors, lawyers, engineers who could solve complex problems in their fields but couldn't accept prosperity in their own lives. They'd say to me, "Joseph, I understand the logic, but..." And there's your problem right there. That "but" is the wall you're building between yourself and your good. You see, your intellect is a wonderful servant but a terrible master. When you let it dominate, it becomes a prison guard, keeping you locked in patterns of limitation. The intellect says, "Show me first, then I'll believe." But the subconscious says, "Believe first, then I'll show you." These are two completely different operating systems. Here's what I want you to understand. You don't need to know how your desire will come to pass. That's not your job. Your job is to accept it mentally and emotionally. The how is the realm of your subconscious mind, which has access to infinite intelligence and knows pathways you could never figure out with your conscious thinking. When you plant a seed in the ground, do you dig it up every day to see if it's growing? Of course not. You'd kill it if you did. You trust the process. You water it, give it sunlight, and let nature do its work. Your mental seed is the same. Plant it with feeling, nourish it with faith, and stop digging it up with doubt and worry. I knew a woman who desperately wanted to heal her relationship with her daughter. They hadn't spoken in 3 years. Every time she thought about it, she'd rehearse old arguments, remember painful words, and convince herself it was hopeless. She was watering the wrong seed. I told her, stop reciting the problem, start feeling the problem, start feeling the solution. Every night before sleep, she imagined embracing her daughter. She felt the warmth, heard laughter, experienced forgiveness. She didn't know how it would happen. She didn't know how it would happen. She just accepted that it would. Within 6 weeks, a mutual friend, someone she hadn't thought about in years, reached out and became the bridge that brought them back together. The how appeared because she stopped blocking it with her doubts. Now here's what makes this principle so powerful. When you stop trying to force the how, you also stop creating resistance. And resistance is the invisible wall that keeps most people from their goals. Think about it this way. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You don't grab the stem and try to pull it upward faster. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you trust the process that's already built into nature. Your subconscious works the same way. It has intelligence far beyond your conscious understanding. It knows pathways and connections that your logical mind could never calculate. But it can only work freely when you stop interfering with worry, doubt, and the need to control every step. I've seen people sabotage their own success simply by obsessing over the how. They get a great idea for a business, but instead of taking the first clear step in front of them, they paralyze themselves trying to figure out the entire 5-year plan. They need to know where every penny will come from, how they'll handle problems that don't even exist yet, how they'll manage success before they've even started. And what happens? Nothing. They never begin because they're waiting for a complete blueprint that will never come. The universe doesn't hand you the full map. It gives you the next step. And when you take that step with faith, the following step appears. The following step appears. Then the next and the next. This is how all great achievements unfold. Not through perfect planning, but through faithful action combined with trust in a power greater than yourself. So your job is simple. Clarify your desire, feel it as already real, and then watch for the opportunities that present themselves. Don't dismiss the small nudges. Don't ignore the coincidences. Don't overlook the person who randomly calls, the book that falls off the shelf, the thought that whispers, try this. These are not accidents. They're your subconscious mind, working through the infinite intelligence of the universe, orchestrating the how on your behalf. Let the how take care of itself. Your only responsibility is to maintain the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Now, I want to address something that trips up so many people on this path. They come to me and say, Dr. Murphy, I've been affirming, I've been visualizing, I've been feeling the feeling, but nothing's happening. How long do I have to keep this up? And my answer is always the same. You persist until it hardens into fact. Listen carefully. Your subconscious mind doesn't operate on your timetable. It doesn't consult your calendar or your watch. It operates according to universal law, according to the time required for your assumption to become externalized in your world. Think of it like planting a seed. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every day to see if it's growing, do you? You don't stand over it, wringing your hands, wondering why there's no tree yet. You plant it, you water it, you trust the process, and you let nature do its work. The same principle applies here. Once you've planted the seed of your desire in your subconscious mind through feeling, through assumption, through living in the end, your job is simply to remain faithful to that assumption, to return to it, to feel it real over and over, until there's no longer any separation between you and your desired state. Now, here's what happens for most people. They assume their desire for a few days, maybe a week. They feel good, they're excited, they're on fire with belief. But then a few days pass, and they look around at their physical reality, and it hasn't changed yet. The bank account still shows the same number. The relationship still looks the same number. The health condition persists, and what do? They panic, they doubt. They say, see, I knew it wouldn't work. This is all nonsense. And in that moment, they abandon their assumption. They return to the old state, the old feeling, the old identity, and of course nothing changes. You must understand, the three-dimensional world is always reflecting a past state of consciousness. What you see around you now is the hardened result of what you assumed days, weeks, or months ago. If you want to see something different, you must persist in the new assumption long enough for it to harden into fact. This requires patience, not the patience of passive waiting, but the patience of persistent assumption. The patience of returning again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, regardless of what your senses tell you. This patience is not taught in our schools. We are trained for immediate action, for quick results, for visible effort. But the law of assumption operates on a different time frame. It moves according to the natural gestation period of your desire. A child in the womb does not grow faster because the mother is anxious. A seed in the ground does not sprout more quickly because the farmer checks on it every hour. There is a season for planting, a season for planting, a season for growth, and a season for harvest. Your assumption is the planting. Your assumption is the planting. Your persistence is the watering. Your faith is the sunlight. And the harvest comes in its appointed time. I have seen people give up one day before their demonstration would have appeared. They held the assumption would have appeared. They held the assumption for weeks, sometimes months. They persisted through doubt, through mockery, through every contrary appearance. And then at the very threshold of manifestation, they abandoned their assumption. They abandoned their assumption. They returned to the old state, the old feeling, the old belief. This is the great tragedy of those who learn this law but fail to master it. They understand the principle intellectually. They practice it intermittently. But they lack the final ingredient, the unwavering conviction that what they have assumed must come to pass. Let me give you something practical. When doubt arises, and it will arise, do not fight it. Do not resist it. Simply return to your assumption. Return to your assumption. Return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The doubt is only a habit, an old pattern of thought seeking to reassert itself. You do not need to destroy the doubt. You need only to destroy the doubt. You need only to withdraw your attention from it and return it to your assumption. Think of it this way. You are in a room with two doors. One door leads to your old state, your old reality, everything you wish to leave behind. The other door leads to your desired state, your fulfilled wish, the life you are claiming. Doubt is simply the voice calling you back to the first door. Every time you hear that voice calling you, hear that voice and return instead to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you walk further through the second door. Eventually, you walk so far through that second door that you cannot even hear the voice anymore. This is persistence. This is faith. This is the creative power of assumption brought to its full expression. And when you reach this point, when your assumption has become so natural that you no longer question it, when the feeling of the wish fulfilled is more real to you than the evidence of your senses, that is when you will look up and discover that your world has rearranged itself to match your inner conviction. And here is the beautiful truth that so many miss. This process is not reserved for the great moments alone. It is not something you do once a year when you set a grand intention. No, this is the way you must learn to live every single day of your life. Every morning when you open your eyes, you are choosing your state. Every conversation, every decision, every reaction, these are opportunities to either reinforce the reality you desire or to slip back into the old patterns that have kept you bound. I have watched people transform their entire lives by making this one simple shift. They stopped reacting to their circumstances and started responding from their desired state. When financial pressure came, instead of collapsing into worry, they felt the relief of abundance. When loneliness knocked at their door, they inhabited the warmth of loving companionship. When illness tried to claim their attention, they dwelt in the feeling of perfect health. This is not denial. This is not denial. This is not pretending that challenges don't exist. This is something far more powerful. It is the deliberate choice to live from the end rather than from the middle of your struggle. You see, most people are living in the middle of your struggle. You see, most people are living in the middle. They are caught in the gap between where they are and where they want to be, and that gap becomes their entire reality. They measure their progress by looking at what has not yet appeared. They exhaust themselves trying to figure out how it will all work out. They oscillate between hope and despair, belief and doubt, and in that oscillation they remain stuck. But when you live from the end, there is no gap, there is no struggle. There is only the natural unfolding of what you have already claimed in consciousness. You move through your day with a quiet confidence that needs no external validation. You make decisions from the place of already being who you desire to be. You speak, think, and act as the version of yourself who already has what you want. And let me tell you something that will liberate you entirely. You do not need to know the how. You do not need to know the how. You do not need to figure out the path. You do not need to arrange the circumstances or manipulate the pieces. All of that is the work of your subconscious mind, which has infinite intelligence and knows exactly how to bring your assumption to pass. Your only job is to remain faithful to your assumption, to return to it again and again, especially when the outer world seems to contradict it. to feel it as real, to think from it rather than about it, to let it saturate your consciousness until it becomes the most natural thing in the world.